Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Tales from the Lockbox, a Property.ca podcast. I'm your host, Josh Benoliel, and I'm very excited to bring in our guest today, somebody I've been following on Instagram for a long time. I think she's got a really great story to bring to us. Welcome, Jenna Rose, to Tales from the Lockbox.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
They were so excited to have you. So why don't we kick it off, and you tell everybody a little bit of who you are and why I potentially thought it would be good to have you on, as you're doing good out there, it seems. So tell us a little bit who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much. So my name is Jenna Rose. I'm originally from East Coast, and I moved here about 8 years ago. So I am 29 now. I left when I was about 20, and at the time, all my friends were getting married, having kids, and I wanted none of that. So I decided to move across the country with no job, no friends, no plan, just the mindset of I'm going to be extremely successful. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to learn everything I need to know. And then I moved to Calgary first. I went out there in 2015. The economy crashed. I struggled. I went on welfare. I couldn't keep a job. And then after a year of just busting my butt off, I decided to move to Toronto. And then that's really kind of where everything started to take off.
Wow. That's incredible. It's a cross-country tale.
Yeah, it's definitely the last 8 years have been, or 9 years now, it's been an incredible journey. So when I moved here, I started my own personal training company. Okay. So I did that for about 3 years. Kind of like my background, I went to school for nutrition. I was personal training, but kind of dropped out of university because I was not good in school. And so I just saw the opportunity here. So I really just kind of, networked. I met a lot of, really high clientele. So like people in the financial district and CEOs, and then meeting their wives. And so I created a really good business. And then after 3 years, I knew I didn't want to do that forever. I'm like, I don't want to be, no offense to anybody, but I don't want to be a 45, 50-year-old personal trainer. And all my clients had investment properties. And you're talking about real estate and politics. And so all of them were like, you'd be a really good real estate agent. So then fast forward to the end of 2019, first of 2020, I decided to get my license. I left my business cold turkey, and thank God I did, because 3 months later, the pandemic happened.
I was just going to say, it sounds like your timeline is right at the beginning of COVID.
Right at the beginning. So I got my license in January, and then like I said, March is when the pandemic happened. And if I was still personal training, I would have been really screwed.
Wow. So what did you do? What happened? Because that's an interesting time to have to start networking and meeting people when no one wants to talk to anybody.
Yeah, it was very challenging. I think everyone kind of has their own story with it. But for me, I was really banking on networking and going out to social events. And then kind of our whole world kind of collapsed, right? Yeah. So where I just had my real estate license, I was on my own for a bit too. I think in the first couple months, we all thought the world was dying. So no one was hanging out. You're completely isolated. So I just went nuts on leases, and I just did a whole bunch in my first year to kind of get comfortable, and then my business kind of slowly started to grow after that.
Yeah, and I find that a lot as a general trajectory with agents, especially here. We have a lot of leases that come in through condos.ca, but building that business off the back of leases is a very it's you got to put the work in, right, and learn the ropes. I know we force a lot of our agents, not force, but that's how we get everyone to get to that point. So, but an interesting time to be doing leases during COVID as well, because it was tough. I remember I haven't even thought about it till now. I didn't want to think about it till now. The COVID declaration forms we had to fill out, and everybody.
Oh, I remember even too, meeting listing agents in back alleys and underneath parking garages, and going in with your hood up to some buildings because you couldn't be an agent. So I felt like a drug dealer for a few months.
Yeah, it was a sketchiness going on.
It was so sketchy.
I remember I made a video on Instagram, and it's up there, Lucas. You can cut it into the podcast to show it here. But it was checking in to go into a showing during COVID. It was pretty much giving everything. They actually wanted a blood sample for you to get into the building. It was awful. So good for you that you pushed through that, and you did it during such a hard time of COVID. So now, where does your business look like? Where do you trade? What does it look like? What kind of stuff? Where do you work around? Because I see you're successful. I see you're always getting listings. You're in really nice properties. You have a very strong social media following. following. Like, I think you're over 30,000 followers, which is very impressive. You know, so what does that look like? What you know, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm still very all over the place. I don't do as many rentals now, which is really nice, but I would say I'm pretty much from like Toronto to Hamilton, and I'm really trying to focus in on Mississauga. Because again, no offense to Toronto agents, but I just never saw myself as being, you know, like a downtown Toronto condo queen. I really wanted to get into the suburbs. So I've been doing a lot of door knocking. I recently just partnered up with a woman who moved into my brokerage, and she's in the luxury market. So both solo agents, both have, you know, a lot of skills and knowledge. So her and I have really teamed up to kind of, you know, focus in one area, which is in Benoliel, Mississauga. So I'm really trying to just put my eggs into one basket, but I'm still everywhere. Like, I'm in Hamilton, I'm in Ajax, I'm downtown. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but I also don't want to say no to business. Just got a listing in Norfolk, so I'm way out there. And so I'm still kind of just all over the place right now.
So it sounds like there's some grooming to still do and to...
Yeah, and I think that will take time. Like, I think this year I will probably start referring some people, like clients and stuff, because I am trying to stay in one place, but at the same time I love money and I'm just a workaholic.
Well, you know, one of the things that a couple of things I'll touch on, like, you know, we have an agent that was on the podcast a couple of weeks back. His name's Arjun, and he lives close to Niagara Falls. He's one of our top agents. He put 60,000 kilometers on his Tesla last year.
I can believe it.
Like, he'll drive to Barrie to do a deal. Like, I remember I was talking one day. He's like, "Yeah, I just did a rental showing in like London, Ontario." And I'm like,
"That's crazy."
And the guy's a top agent. So I think, but one of the things that we work with people on is always like, you know, you need to have people working with you, and you can't be everywhere all the time. So one of the things that I noticed in my business personally over the years is that, like, you get dragged to all these different places. Like, right now, I have a listing in Calabugie, Ottawa. Right? Like, it's like 4 hours from here, but I can't do that listing. But what I can do is find the right agent to team up with there, whether it's from a brokerage or from a sister brokerage or whatever it is, and work from there. Like, I have another in Kitchener. I'll probably never walk in the door of that listing, but I will manage the client. I will manage everything and work from there. So I think finding that middle ground is so important, right?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, and I feel like that's what I'm starting to go through now, is trying to find that middle ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I got some questions for you.
Okay.
Now that we've dove in a little bit. So first one is kind of, and you know, you're starting to dabble in it a little bit. Like, and I saw on your Instagram this morning, even like you were at the gym this morning, like, what does it take for you to stay motivated? What drives you? What's kind of your mindset when you're going through all this, like running all over the place and trying to figure all these different things out? Like, what, you know, what keeps you going?
So I will say most of the time,
besides money.
Yeah, I would say most of the time, honestly, I'm not motivated. It's definitely a lot of discipline for sure. I would say out of the week, I'm motivated maybe like 2 out of the 7 days to really like get up and go to the gym. This morning, I didn't want to go out. Like, I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to wake up. I wanted to sleep, but, you know, kind of have to do it. And I think it's just a lifestyle that I want. Like, I came from a really poor family, and I've been struggling my whole life. Like, I moved out at 16, and I've just been busting my ass ever since. And so I just want to get into that bracket, like that 1%. I want to have a really good life. I want to be able to move my family to Ontario someday. If I have kids, I want to give them the best life. And now being in a relationship and getting a little kitty, like, they also really, I guess, would motivate me as well to kind of push myself. I'm obsessed with like self growth and all that stuff. So I think really it's just like the life that I see for myself. And now with, you know, more taxes and life gets more expensive and inflation, I feel like, you know, it's like definitely such a chase, you know? Yeah.
I can tell you somebody who has 2 kids now. It's that doesn't stop. And it just gets harder. Like, there's just more shit always. So as good as you keep getting, there's going to be some new shit that's going to, you know, I think Theo Vaughn I watch. I don't know if you know who Theo Vaughn is, the big Instagram guy, podcaster. He like recently posted, like, he's like, you know, the one thing about life is that just when things are going again, life comes and punches you in the face again. It's like, here's some more life for you. You thought you were good? Here's some more life if you didn't have enough yet, you know? So, but I think definitely that's some really impressive things that you're aspiring to work towards, and having those goals are so powerful, right? Like, you know, knowing where you want to go. I love the story.
I think I'm just obsessed with like self-growth too. Like, I don't want to be in the same position I am a year from now. And I find even just like the last several years of being in real estate, like I'm always putting myself in really uncomfortable situations. I don't like it, but I find when you can go through that, then it just makes you stronger, and then you kind of get to that next level.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Amazing. Okay, so let's jump into my next question here is, what is the number one most important pillar for success in your business? And I look at pillars for success. I'll give you a little background on how I kind of define that. You know, I look at like online leads as a pillar, door knocking is a pillar, referral marketing. Like, what kind of pillar is your business kind of built around?
Okay, I think mine would be really nurturing relationships. So again, like I do a lot of door knocking. Now I'm doing a lot more open houses for the first time, really, because most of my career you haven't been able to do them. And then reaching out to people on social media. So in our business, you know, it's not, you meet someone and they're not normally going to buy or sell right away, right? So it's really staying consistent and building that relationship. So I've had people now that I was showing them rental units, and then they went and they leased with somebody else, but I still treated them like they were my clients. So Christmas cards, phone calls, you get them on Instagram, and then you're sending messages to their stories and comments and stuff like that. And same with even buyers now. Like I've had people who bought with somebody else, and then I have still been able to nurture that relationship, and now they're coming to me on the sell side. Yeah. So I think my strong suit is really building relationships and nurturing people.
Amazing. And that's like a tough one to do, especially when you're doing it like all over the place, right? Like you're grabbing from so many different places. So interesting to see how that kind of, and I like asking this question because everyone kind of has different ones.
Yeah.
You know, and I think one of the big things that I've been working with a lot of agents with recently, and we've been talking about it, is like, you know, everyone kind of has one really strong one, but it's so important as an agent to really build at least two or three, especially nowadays with how everything changes all the time, and really pushing that. So like one of like my big ones is I've been, you know, I noticed that like some of my farming techniques, like I do a lot of online leads and I do a lot of personal like networking and personal things, but I noticed that like a lot of my farming things were done. So building that brand up and kind of finding the pieces to hold the house up rather than, you know, working on it. So pillars come up a lot.
Yeah, I guess, like my pillars would be definitely social media, door knocking, and then nurturing the database for
Amazing.
Sure.
So cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. What has been something that has been pivotal for you getting to where you are today? It sounds like you've been on a journey, so it's like...
Yeah, I think it's honestly just been really just being consistent and not... I know this kind of maybe sounds cheesy, but just like really being consistent with your activities. So like in the beginning, you know, I was really scared to pick up the phone and call people or door knock, cold call, do open houses. Like in the beginning, which I thought was really interesting because like I made my own personal training company. I went and met people and networked. But in real estate, it's different, right? It's it's just a bit different. So I think for me, really the biggest thing has been really sticking to my schedule and lead generating and getting prospects and staying on top of that schedule. Because in the beginning, it's like, okay, maybe you call a couple people here, a couple people there, you follow up maybe once in a while. And I was really all over the place. But I would say now within the last couple of years, I really try to stick with that and really just, you know, hunt for those prospects, do my schedule. And I find that has really allowed me to grow my business. Yeah,
it's and staying consistent, like you talked about, like the consistency becomes the key so often for all these things. Everything. It's all of it. Relationships, going to the gym, your body, everything. Like it all comes down to being consistent and keep moving on. And like I said, I think real estate's such a specific market where you really need to like double down on that consistency.
Especially like now within the market, right? Like I think you really have to double down on doing all these things. And it's so funny because, you know, they tell you that in the beginning, okay, like do lead gen, time block, pick up the phone, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And then you half-ass it, right? I mean, everybody's a little bit different, but I definitely did in the beginning. But now, since I've really like was able to stay to my schedule and really putting in those hours of like prospecting, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, and once you know where you want to go, I think it really becomes a lot easier to say, hey, here's what I need to do to get where I want to go. And learning, you know, everyone thinks they know better, so learning the hard way is the easier.
I always learn the hard way, always.
Me too. You know what, I do like a lot of like events and different things, and I'm always like so against the grain of like what like someone would offer. Like my wedding, it was like, oh, I'm not doing anything traditional, I'm doing it all my way, and it's always so much harder. And I think as I'm getting older now and like having kids and like getting so busy, I'm like, maybe there's a reason that like
don't reinvent the wheel.
Maybe there's a reason why it's done this way, and it might be easier for me. And I'm starting to like become more like accepting of like, all right, like where can we have this event and just sign up this package? Okay, that's it. You do everything. I just show up. It's like kind of becoming that now. So, you know, like life gets busy, life gets hard, and especially as an agent, like we were talking about this when you walked in. You don't know where to go in the day. Like you're pulled in 19 different directions. But between your clients, your listings, your this, your that, your prospecting, your personal growth, everything, it's like, where do you go? And as a realtor, it's not like there's a formula of like, here's the schedule of what you need to do. It's not like, here's the platform. It's like, you got to pick up all these pieces and guidance from wherever you can get it from and put it together into your own formula. So it's so tough sometimes, I feel, as an agent. And that's kind of where I start off with the motivation of where you're coming from and where you're going from, because you kind of identify like, how do you get from where you are to where you want to be?
Yeah, and you have to. Like my boyfriend and I have this on running joke where it's like, you know, when you're in the nitty gritty and you're doing all these things, you're like, oh, like I don't want a realtor today, but it's like you're choosing to do this, right? So we always just laugh like, oh, okay, like let's just go like flip burgers or something like that. But that's not the life we want, and I feel like the life that we want requires a lot of discipline and, you know, doing the things you don't want to do to really get you there.
100%.
Yeah.
Another quote I heard recently is like, when you just think it's like hurting and it's so hard, like push that extra mile through, because that's when you're close to the end of it, right? And even me, like the past month, I just had a baby a month ago, so like the past month has been like very intense, and I have like 14 listings right now and like 5 different buyers or 6 different buyers that I'm working with, so it's been like crazy. And I didn't have an assistant I brought on, but I was like, the past month I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to keep going through with this. But you know, like today, finally, like the yesterday was a nice day and things started to like just clear over, and I'm like, I can finally start to feel that momentum forward. But having that consistency, having that push, all these things start to like build together to get you to that point, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah, cool. But it's interesting. But I often feel that way, like maybe I should go just work at like McDonald's and it just seems so much easier.
I feel like every other week I'm like, do I really want this life? Do I really want this?
Very intense. And
we both just have to remind each other. It's like, because he's also in sales too, and it's like, yeah, like this is the life we want, this is what we have to do. But there's so many times I'm like, do I really want to do this?
I think a big thing too that I noticed over time is like, and because I ask myself that a lot, is as long as you're building things in the background, the like, you know, and I noticed this early in my real estate career, like you're in real estate not just to sell real estate, it's to build real estate as well. You got to invest in the real estate space as well continuously. So like I'm always, part of my goals are always adding more real estate to my portfolio. And I think that if you continuously do that as an agent, it kind of at the end of the day will make it more worthwhile, rather than like, yeah, you're going to make money, you're going to go on nicer trips, you're going to go to nicer restaurants, you're going to get a better car, might get a more expensive haircut or better clothes. But if at the end of the day, it's just money, there could be a couple more zeros in the bank account. But if you start having 5-6 properties in 10 years from now, then you really got someone to look back on and be like, okay, well, like this is what I did it all for.
Absolutely.
Right? So big important piece. Okay, next, my number one favorite question to ask anybody who comes on the podcast is, what is the number one most important thing an agent can do to take their business to the next level? I think we talked about a couple of things, but how would you like to, you know, position that one?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is to never stop lead generating and looking for prospects, because I think all of us realtors go through a phase where, you know, we get busy and we have all these clients, all these listings, and then they all close and finish all at one time. And if you're still not doing that lead gen behind the scenes, then you're going to be, when all your deals close, you're going to have nothing on the go. And that's happened to me a few times where it's, you get so busy and you're running around taking care of everything, and then all of your deals close and everything finishes up and you're like, oh, where's my next client? Where am I going to go? So I think the number one thing really to take your business to the next level is to do lead gen, until you get to that point where your business is all obviously like referrals and stuff like that, where you don't need to. And that's obviously
but even then there's something that you got to do.
Yeah, until you get to a business where all your business is coming from repeat and referral, I think it would be lead gen.
And I definitely agree. It's one of the concepts I talk about on the podcast a lot, and I call it building a pipeline, right? You need to continuously be building a pipeline. It's something I work with our agents all the time. Like, you might have a lot of people who are going to close in the next 0 to 60 days. But once those people are done, what comes in next? So we're always building a pipeline of, what is the next 180 days worth of people? And if you can connect with those people and continue moving them down the line, it's the number one most important thing you do. And I think, especially with us, we get so much inbound traffic for online leads. A lot of newer agents that work with us, what we find is that, they get so caught up in the weeds of just like, I'm going to close this deal, I'm going to close this deal, I'm going to close this deal. But that's when the burnout happens.
Yeah.
And that's when you get to exactly what you just said. You close a bunch of this business in May or in April, May, and June, and then July hits, and then you're like, well, what's going on here? Where did it all go? And it's like, well, have you been building a pipeline for there? So another concept a lot of the time that I like to work with people on internally is, are you working on the business or in the business?
Yeah, I love that quote.
Right? And that's a very important thing for real estate agents, because it's so easy to just get stuck in working in the business, and if you take your foot off the gas of working on the business, it's going to be your catalyst to success or not. So kind of tying into where you went with that, those are kind of the words I use to describe similar things.
It's so true. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, final question. What's your tale from the lockbox being a real estate agent? Like, you have a story that's like, oh, this is my go-to kind of, this happened this one time, or I think every agent's been somewhere. You don't have to go so crazy or divulge something you don't want to, but is there something that stood out to you in, I guess, the 4 years now of being in real estate that's kind of, you've seen something's happened along the way?
Yeah, I would say probably my one that always stands out to me is I was doing a showing with, actually, there's two of them. So this is kind of an embarrassing one. I haven't said this one out loud yet.
Yeah, let's go. Welcome to Tales from the Lockbox. This is where it gets fun.
So
we're here to have a good time.
Yeah, this is a funny one. This is actually better than what I was going to say. So a couple years ago, I was picking up my client who lives in downtown, and we were going to look at houses in Hamilton. And so we were jumping on the highway, and I was signaling to go onto the highway. I looked at a turn, and then did I not crash my car in front? And so what happened was, he was like, pump the brakes, because I'm like looking, and then I didn't have time to obviously pump the brakes.
No.
And so what happened was it was a 4-car pileup.
Oh, so no. On the highway?
On the highway. So someone in front of me, well, the first guy, he slammed on his brakes, I guess, and then all 4 of us hit each other. And the really strange part about it was that, so the first car, he had no legs. And the guy in front of me who I hit, he was missing an arm.
Really?
And so, like, my client is beside me, and I'm like, I am so sorry. Like, this is... So then
2 amputees in the same crash.
Yeah, and in the 4 cars, there was a guy that didn't have legs, and one guy was missing his arm. So, yeah, it was a whole day.
Intense.
Yeah, it was a whole day thing. We didn't make it to Hamilton that day.
Did not see a showing.
Yeah, my car was completely totaled.
Oh, my God, I'm so sorry.
It is what it is. Thank God, like, we weren't hurt. Like, it wasn't really a bad crash.
But just everyone just kind of
everyone just hit each other, and so... Yeah, he was really cool about it, thank God. And then, the next day I took the rental car, we went... saw the house, we put an offer, and we got it. So all worked out.
That's the question I always ask. You got the deal done.
We got the deal done.
On the house you were going to go see.
On the house we were going to go see.
So good.
Yeah, so that was probably one that...
Good story.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jenna. Is there anything else you want to leave our guest off with that if you think might be a good piece of information for anyone to listen to that you go by?
I would just say if you're really trying to be successful and, you're trying to get into that 1%, there is no magic recipe. There's no magic pill. There's no free lunch. Like, you have to put in the work, and it takes time to get there. But if you just work really hard, be consistent, anyone can be successful.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been Tales from the Lockbox, a Property.ca podcast. Again, I'm your host, Josh Benoliel. This is Jenna Rose. Have a great day out there. Stay hungry, keep hustling, and get after it. Ciao.